Divorce often leads children to the worst of places, be that poverty, crime, or even dare I say public Discord servers. So how did Kaga's divorce from intelligence systems affect the quality of his first Fire Emblem game that wasn't a Fire Emblem game? Well, sometimes people move on better than others. Now, as anyone who's familiar with Shozo Kaga's games should know, after FE5, Kaga left intelligence systems, and then the Fire Emblem franchise essentially did a soft reset in terms of mechanics in the form of the GBA games. But Tear Ring Saga, the first non-Fire Emblem game but still technically Fire Emblem game that Kaga made, went in the opposite direction. Firstly, it carries over pretty similar gameplay from regular Fire Emblem, with some adjustments, with there no longer being a weapon triangle, and resistance is only half of your magic stat rather than your entire stat like in Thracia. Now, on top of slightly changing mechanics in an attempt to dodge further lawsuits from Nintendo, they also reused mechanics that weren't found in any post-Kaga games, such as the force to dismounts from Mystery of the Emblem and Thracia, as well as the summoners from Gaiden. And they also added conversations between characters that act sort of like Path of Radiance's base conversations, but instead of Ike talking to random NPCs or units that you forgot that you recruited, members of your army will speak to each other rather than just the main protagonist. Now, we can't just glaze Kaga without mentioning this game's skill system, because this game is the most skill emblem that a Kaga game has been up to this point in the timeline. You can teach skills through visiting houses, using scrolls, or even holding off on promoting units until they reach a certain level, to where they may only learn the skill unpromoted. They also changed some other stuff around, like Kanto being its own skill that not every mounted unit has access to, and the way thieves steal in this game is very different from the other entries in the franchise. But I won't spoil every gameplay change here, since finding these out for yourself is part of the fun anyway. Mechanics aside, another thing that's significantly different from regular Fire Emblem games are growths. It's pretty common for Kaga games to have units with very low growth rates, and Tear Ring Saga is no exception. This isn't exactly a bad thing either, since it means for one, enemy stats don't power creep in order to keep up with your units, and number two, player units need to find other ways to stand out besides simple good bases and growths. And with all the random skills that units have and all the different personal weapons in this game, it's something that I'd argue is done fairly well. And on the topic of things that Tear Ring Saga excels at, we should also mention one of my favourite parts of this game, and that is its secrets. Kaga is known to put random secret events in his games that you have no way of knowing about outside of a guide. Now, I know that the fact that these events aren't telegraphed in the slice to the player may not sound appealing at first, but it simply highlights the excellent replay value that this game has. And besides, not seeing everything on your first playthrough without a guide is either a boon or a bane depending on the person. Now's probably a good time to mention this game's story. It's nothing too special, seeing as you can definitely see parts where it's similar to other Fire Emblem games, but if you're at the point of your journey with Fire Emblem where you know about Tear Ring Saga, you've probably realised that the plot of these games are basically the same thing each time. The way the story is presented is also worth noting. When I hear the word Kaga, I usually think of two things. The first thing is, geez, is it just me or is it getting hot in here? And the second thing is story gameplay integration. I've already made an entire video on this, but to summarise briefly, Kaga mixes story and gameplay quite effectively, which makes him a very unique storyteller. So some chapters feel like you're playing through a cutscene the first time you play them, and that's something that I absolutely love about Kaga. It's like you're playing through a story rather than a video game. Of course, this means that stupid gimmicks and BS chapters may appear once in a while, but I literally can't think of a single Fire Emblem game where every chapter I played was an automatic smash hit. Not every chapter is perfect in this game, and that's okay. Some maps did feel like a slog, but other times, some of these chapters are quite unique and stand out. Another thing to probably mention is how this game just casually has a highly detailed multiplayer mode, where you can set custom ban lists on weapons, skills, and basically anything you could want to change. That's right folks, Kaga has done it first for the 76th time this week. Hallelujah. It's worth mentioning that it's only local multiplayer because this was still only made in the early 2000s. But with Parsec and emulation being the easiest it's ever been, I'm sure you guys can figure something out. But the TLDR for this video, since half of you guys weren't paying attention to what I was saying, if you love this man, you'll love this game too. That's the most straightforward I can get with you guys. But there is one more reason to play this game. It's pretty common knowledge that this game's been sued by Nintendo because of some sort of weird benign law called copyright, or something. So every time you play this game, you're actively spiting Nintendo with every second of playtime. That's right folks, Tear Ring Saga is such a good game that just playing the game by itself is both an act of rebellion and retribution against the evil game companies that refuse to re-release their games. But since I've run out of Kaga propaganda for now, I guess I'll have to see you guys later.